こんにちは、ペドロです。この動画では10年以上日本に暮らして日本人を観察してきた経験をもとに日本語での流暢さとは何かを自分なりに解説したいと思います。他の言語とはちょっと違う部分があるんですよ。それも後で詳しく話します。そして流暢になりたいと思っている人がどういうふうに行動したらいいかについても話しますので最後まで見ててくださいね。ちなみにもっとアニメを見るべきとかこういう本を読むべきとかそういう学習的な面じゃなくて考え方の話です。つまり3つの考え方、英語でマインドセットシフトと呼んでるんですけど、それを紹介します。まず、first of all, let me talk about fluency in general. You see, fluency is quite an ambiguous term, but what I do know is that it's not really related to how much knowledge you have in a language, because kids are also considered fluent in their native language, after all. Here in Japan, I have the opportunity to interact with 2 girls and 2 boys that have been born after I came here. And it's very interesting to observe their language development from a non-native perspective. You see, I don't meet them that often, but every time I meet them, I'm amazed by how fast they learn Japanese. It might be very obvious, but I feel like they clearly learn from each other, and even the youngest of them, a 3-year-old boy, sometimes I see him using some quite complex grammar. For example, when he was not satisfied with something his mother was doing, he was telling her, やめてください. And I thought this ください is quite complex grammar for a 3-year-old, but he was using it very naturally, and that's what's fluency all about. It might seem obvious, but it's when that language becomes second nature to you. And as I said, Japanese is quite unique, and that is because of its writing system. Actually, even natives cannot read Japanese sometimes. A few years ago, I was on a bus in Kyoto, and there was this couple sitting behind me. They were tourists, and they were talking about how they wanted to get off at a bus station called Kawahara-cho. The only problem though is that there is no Kawahara-cho in Kyoto, and the bus stop that they wanted to get off is actually called Kawaramachi in central Kyoto. And the reason that they were confused is because this is how you write Kawaramachi, and indeed one of the possibilities of readings for this word is Kawahara-cho, or it can even be Kawaharamachi or Kawaramachi, which is the correct one in this case, and the only way of knowing it is by knowing. And there are many examples like that in Japanese. Many words actually have multiple readings, and they can even have different meanings even though they are written the same. This word here, for example, made up from the characters for person, and these characters that means atmosphere. It's like the key of Dragon Ball. And when you learn Japanese, usually you learn this word first as ninki, which means popular. But there's actually another reading and another meaning to this word. It can also be read as hitoke, and hitoke is related to the presence of humans around you. For example, if I say hitoke no nai tori, tori means street, nai is the negative form, so hitoke no nai tori means a street where you don't feel human presence, or basically a deserted street. To be fluent in Japanese means being able to grasp these differences in readings and meanings, but even natives don't get it right all the time. So let me ask you, what is fluency for you in Japanese? Are you there yet? And if you're not there, if you don't consider to be there yet, what are you doing to reach that level? Let me know in the comments below. And you must be wondering, and how do I reach this level of fluency? Well, it's hard work, hard but hopefully fun work, but that's not the focus of this video. This video, as I said in the introduction, I want to introduce you to 3 mindset shifts that I think are crucial to be able to reach a fluent level in Japanese. I didn't just make them up. I realized about them when looking back at my own journey through life, the things that I tried and I succeeded, and the things that I tried and didn't succeed. And for me, Japanese is one of the things that I did really well. And I had this mindset from the start that I really believe allowed me to reach the level that I am today. And I want to talk about that in more detail with you. Actually, I was thinking that I should probably apply this mindset to all other aspects of my life as well. But anyway, the first mindset shift is acceptance. Don't ever try to argue with the language. It's a battle that you cannot win anyway. In Japanese, some things might feel very logical to you, especially if your native language is very different from it. For me, I will give a personal example. This word here, you, is read as you, means to say. And the past tense is ita, and the past continuous tense is iteita. And in Japanese, when you are talking to someone about what someone else has said, you are conveying their message, you're quoting someone, you usually use the past continuous tense, iteita. So, for example, imagine that one of your friends tells you that he's not going to a party and you want to tell that to another friend. In Japanese, you could say, 彼はパーティーに行かないと言ってた. Basically, 彼 means he, party, 行かない will not go. So he will not go to the party. And this iteita, as I said, is used to quote what your friend has said. So basically it's he said he's not going to the party. But even though this is the past continuous tense, and a literal translation would be he was saying he will not go to the party, in Japanese that's how it is. For me that felt very logical, but the truth is it doesn't matter how I feel about it. I just have to accept and move on. Now, to the second mindset shift. The second mindset shift is vision. It might sound silly, but you should be able to envision yourself as a Japanese speaker. It's actually hard because you have to imagine yourself as a totally different person from what you are now. But if you want any chance of achieving a fluent level, you must be able to visualize yourself speaking fluent Japanese. And you know what I did when I had just started learning Japanese? I would talk to the mirror in fake Japanese. I found it very fascinating that the order of the words are completely different to what I was used to. And by watching anime or dramas, I realized that dakara meant because. And for me, it was very interesting that even though in English, for example, you say A because B, in Japanese it would be A, B dakara. And I would talk to the mirror in fake Japanese using this dakara. For example, 足りもねない karisanu dakara. Wow, it's much harder to speak fake Japanese once you know the real thing. But anyway, if you have a hard time imagining yourself as a Japanese speaker, you can try to speak fake Japanese to the mirror as well. And on to the final and third mindset shift. As I said, I found the language to be very fascinating, and indeed the third mindset shift is curiosity. Rather than thinking, oh no, I don't understand anything, be curious about the language, be curious about each word you learn and the cultural aspects behind it. there is this example that I really like, and for me it shows how amazing and unique Japanese is. This word here, made up from the characters for water and surface, meaning basically water surface, can be read, actually there are three possible readings for it, but two that are most used. So if you use the Chinese readings for the characters, which in Japanese we call onyomi, it's read as suimen. But the Japanese reading, let's say for this word, the common Japanese reading is minamo. But there is a distinction to how you use each of them, and suimen is used in more serious situations like the news, while minamo is used in more poetic situations, let's say. So imagine that there was an accident, a leakage of oil somewhere, and the newscaster is saying that there is oil on the surface of the water. He used the word suimen. But if I want to say that the ripples on the water are beautiful, I would say in Japanese, minamo no hamo wa otsukushii. And I don't think there are many languages out there that make this distinction. And for me, that's very fascinating. And being curious with Japanese, we reward you with many other interesting examples like this one. And it will open new possibilities of expressing yourself that you have never thought possible in your own language. So instead of thinking,
oh, I have to learn 2 readings for this word,
you should think, oh wow, that's fascinating. That opens so many possibilities for me to read. In conclusion, fluency in Japanese is more about getting used to it and accepting how it works, rather than perfection, rather than having to remember every kanji there is and all of their meaning, which is an impossible task anyway, even for native people. And I hope I could convince you that in order to become fluent in Japanese, you have to go from, oh wow, this language is impossible, to, oh wow, this language is fascinating. Now let me ask you just a final question. What do you find fascinating in Japanese? Let me know in the comments below. In the next video, I want to start a kind of book club with something that I have been postponing for a while, in which I introduce some Japanese novels that I have read. I will talk about the content of the book, of course, but I want to focus on the Japanese aspect of it. I'll talk about vocabulary and such that I've learned and that I thought was fascinating, and I think you would think so as well. If you haven't yet, then subscribe to my channel to not miss out, and see you in the next video. Mata ne!